Hello internet and welcome back to the most inquisitive channel on YouTube, Life's Biggest Questions, the place where we advocate for socio-economic change without the causation of violence. As always, I'll be your disembodied narrator, Jack Finch, as we hit the panic button, watch the titanium shutters unfold, kick up our feet and wait for this whole thing to blow over, as we timidly ask the question, what if the Purge was real for 7 days? Now, we've already proposed the question of the Purge being real, 12 hours where all crime is legal across a dystopian United States of America. You know the drill and how it all plays out, but what if we stick you one further? What if we stretch that out to an entire week of Purge-iness? Well, let's find out. Before we jump into that car crash of complete carnage though, make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you're a fan of this video, LBQ, or just dystopian hypotheticals in general. Also, be a dear and hit that subscribe bell so you can stay up to date with our latest and greatest uploads. On with the question. In the real world, as you know, The Purge was a 2014 dystopian horror film that went on to spawn a 4-film franchise, as well as a hotly controversial new Netflix series that debuted this month. While in no way being a franchise held in fond regard by the modern world, it still delivered itself to be an interesting concept with some surprisingly intellectual foundations. Particularly in the climate that we live in today, we often find ourselves thinking how society would react to such visceral complications. These violent delights have violent ends and all that. Although we'll approach this question with a light-hearted mentality, the truth behind this question is ultimately a tragic reality. In other words, we only need to briefly look back through several decades to see what happens when a lawful society breaks down, and starker still, that a lot of chaos can happen in just a week. Countries that have next to nothing in terms of criminal justice, and countries that are torn apart by civil war and international conflict waged by modern superpowers, where every day is a struggle without the support of police safety and law enforcement. So what if that occurred in the United States, not just for 12 hours under the 25th constitutional amendment, but an entire week of lawlessness, murder and criminal rampage? Well, for one, you can safely say that this would be the last ever purge under a government sanction, purely for the fact that a week's worth of carnage and lawless destruction would be the undoing of the purge itself. But that doesn't mean we'd be in for a golden age of prosperity and mutual cooperation. Nope, far from it. The United States has a population of 325.7 million people as of the 2017 census, and that's a hell of a lot of people to put through severe emotional and physical trauma prolonged for an entire week, and that's only considering the people that survived such an onslaught. And once all that's over, you just sound the buzzer and hope everything will be fine again? Not a chance. 12 hours is tentative enough, but entire empires can crumble in less than 7 days, even without half its population being armed to the teeth with military-grade weaponry. But, and a huge but, granted, this is all under the assumption of a defiant population, because if we have a complicit population, then it's a completely different story. Before we dive into that can of worms though, let's wind it back a little bit. At what point will we find ourselves with a 7-day purge? Is this the reward for several decades worth of successful purging and a government that somehow managed to cling onto such a model? Or is this the product of a purge that got out of hand and a government that couldn't keep a lid on it? If we take our first possibility, then we need only to look towards instances such as the Milgram experiment and the Zimbardo prison study to understand that the likelihood of it happening is an entirely possible scenario. History has tragically shown us so. The Holocaust, the Red Terror and the Stalinist purges, Tiananmen Square, as both studies ultimately found, a malevolent authority can accommodate psychopathic and sadistic tendencies, and a week-long celebration purge could be implemented as part of, say, a 10th, 25th or 50th anniversary of the purge under a completely complicit yet twistedly murderous society that would be met with thunderous applause. Put your Hunger Games hats on, I don't know, but the thing with these things is there's always a resistance of some sort. I'm an optimist and I believe in the infallible nature of the human spirit, joy as an act of resistance, and undoubtedly, however small and defeated, there'd be a number of people in the United States who were sick and tired of the murderous purge, and all it would take is a period of time where they could get things rolling and seize back control. Let's say, oh I don't know, a week? Say that this week-long year-long anniversary purge is even after 10 years of purging. That's 10 years of training for a disgruntled resistance force. Enough time to formulate a more than competent plan of attack. After 25 years, this becomes a lifelong dedication to overthrowing the purge. 50 years, that's some pretty hardened, grizzled old purge veterans with a vendetta to boot. Let's take into account foreign involvement too. Through the Libyan revolution that began in February 2011, we saw an entire nation mobilize and take back their own country, where rebel forces coordinated with NATO-backed operations to seize Colonel Gaddafi's corrupt regime. Reportedly, the rebels orchestrated this via Twitter, directly messaging airstrike coordinates to NATO forces. There's no saying what would ignite under a week-long purge with a dedicated resistance force that had foreign backing. Let's say they mobilized their forces to one specific area on the first day, Austin, Texas. Tactically speaking, Texas is close enough to Mexico to support foreign involvement and strategically spaced the launch into the rest of the country, with coastal access and strategic passage through the Rio Grande. By Tuesday, the entire state has been taken under rebel control, serving as a springboard for other resistance forces across the country. By Wednesday, the majority of the West Coast has fallen in line, with Canadian backing through British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest. By this time, the new founding fathers of America realized that their own undoing comes in the form of the 25th Amendment, an attempt to scramble the military to take back control of the rebel states. Too late. After a series of rebel-led coups in the United States Marine Corps, the military falls out of the commander-in-chief's hands. Purge loyalists race back to Washington, D.C. from across the country. The rebel states slowly march forward. On the 6th day, the capital is under siege, and on the 7th day, there was no resting, only revolution. Maybe it would take longer than a week to topple the new founding fathers of America. With the majority of their assets seized by a foreign-backed revolution, it'd only be a matter of time before the purge was a bloody stain on a dark, dark history book. Either that, or they just carry on murdering each other for another 100 years. Well, what do you guys think would happen if the purge was real for 7 days? Why don't you leave your thoughts in the comment box down below? If you'd like to continue on with your questioning binge, why don't you go ahead and hit that playlist floating shortly above. As always, I've been your host Jack Finch, you've been watching Life's Biggest Questions, and until next time, you take it easy.